The 2000s is a decade known for its countless horror movie remakes, some that were worthy of its predecessor, some complete garbage, and a select few that were able to surpass the original. These films had bigger budgets or more well-known casts and top-notch production. Although remakes, most of these films added their own twist and spins to the original story, and even added in a completely new storyline that we hadn't seen before. In this video, we'll be discussing 2006's When a Stranger Calls, an isolated home invasion-styled horror movie remake to the 1979 cult classic, and going over just how this is a horror movie remake that's better than the original. And before I get into the video, drop a comment and let me know what your top 10 horror movie remakes of all time are. Because contrary to the belief, we have some really incredible horror movie remakes if you ask me. When a Stranger Calls follows Jill Johnson, a young teenager who is asked to babysit for a rich family in a massive 3-story house. The kids are sleeping, giving her no company until she gets a mysterious unknown call. As the night goes on, she soon realizes that the caller is within the house and she must now fight for her freedom and also save the children. So can Jill Johnson escape and save the kids in time? Now, I really enjoyed this movie. It's a staple of my childhood. It came out when I was 9 years old, so I have some fond memories with this remake. It's really nostalgic for me. I remember when it came out on demand, I used to watch it all the time. Now getting into what I love about When a Stranger Calls, I really do love the opening of the movie. It has some creepy, eerie, unsettling music. We get like this camera POV of a man stalking a neighborhood. We see the parents outside looking for and calling their children to come into the house. The fact that the opening was focused on kids makes it quite sinister. And then this montage opening, it leads to a cop responding to a crime at a house, and of course we all know what that crime ends up being. It just so happens to be a brutal murder and an attack on kids. So I think that was pretty dark, which lets us know exactly what we're in for with this movie. I really like Jill Johnson. She's our main character in the movie, the final girl. She's popular but also shy at the same time, giving Laurie Strode vibes. Kind of like the girl next door, but not the fun one, the one that you lust over, just the one that you relate to. She's also going through a bad breakup during this time. I do believe that her boyfriend cheated on her with one of her friends, so that adds a little depth and substance to her character. Now when she gets to the home, the mansion in which she's babysitting the children at, I really like this environment, this setting for the horror movie. The home is luxurious, it's big, and it's spacious, which should add for some fun horror movie scenes, elements. This was quite the effective use of isolation for later on in the movie. I think that this home adds to the setting of the film. We have an isolated house at nighttime, which is a classic horror movie trope, and I think the movie uses this trope quite well. We also get a tense atmosphere and suspense. I think the film expertly builds tension with the slow burn atmosphere that keeps viewers on the edge, because I know that 9-year-old me, I was on the edge of my couch when I watched this movie. I was on the edge of my seat the first time, the second time, the third time, and so on. And I love that no matter how many times you watch a movie, you get that same feeling with it every single time. And to just add on to the atmosphere and the suspense of the movie, I think the movie is pretty slow until the phone calls start to begin, so it gives it that slow burn type of feel. And I think that's pretty similar to Black Christmas, so it has those vibes to it, which is pretty ironic because both of the original movies of these remakes, they both came out during the same time in the 70s. And in both of those movies, we see a cop helping the two main characters figure out who's calling them on the other end of the line, which makes for some pretty scary phone calls. So I think that with this movie being a slow burn, we get some great pacing, many creepy moments that come out of nowhere, or just a build up to a great scare, or a scene that you think is gonna be a scare, but it doesn't end up being that. It just keeps you on your toes. Also, what I love is the terror and the fear that Jill Johnson displays when she realizes that the caller is now in the house, and she must now save the kids, and she ends up in a cat and mouse with the killer. Speaking of a great cat and mouse sequence between Jill Johnson and the caller, it leads to one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Nah, scratch that, my favorite scene. That would be when Jill Johnson and the two children are in the greenhouse. The sprinklers are on, so this greenhouse, it's misty. There's plants, flowers everywhere. There's even a nice little lake with a little bridge. So Jill basically makes the children hide in one area while she hides under the bridge in the water. The caller is in there. He's looking for them. It's hard to see because it's misty. It's kind of smoky as well. That scene was really a great scene for any horror movie in general. Some great scares, some great suspense. You're scared as well as Jill Johnson and the two kids. You're hoping that they make it out alive, so you're rooting for them. Now it does end up leading to them escaping and also trapping the phone caller within the greenhouse. And that whole sequence led to a pretty solid ending. Now I'm not familiar with any of the other cast members in this movie other than Katie Cassidy. Now she plays Jill's friend, the one that cheated on her boyfriend with her, but of course she had an excuse. He came on to me. It wasn't me, it was all him. Even though she does admit that she used to have a crush on him before Jill and him started dating. But Katie Cassidy is the most recognizable face in the movie for me personally, which when you think about it, Katie Cassidy starred in quite a few horror movie remakes that came out during the 2000s decade. Not necessarily a big role in this movie, but she was in this movie. She also starred in another horror remake that came out this year, 2006's Black Christmas. And in that movie, she was of course the final girl in that movie. And she also played Chris in the 2010 remake for A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I think she was the best character in that movie, and she hands down gave the best performance in that movie as well, and to be honest, she should have been the main character, or at least she should have been casted as Nancy in that movie. I think Camilla Bell, she gave a great performance as Jill, the babysitter. I think her performance was compelling. She portrays a mix of vulnerability, determination, and terror, making her a relatable and sympathetic character. Her reactions to the escalating horror are realistic, pulling the audience further into the tension. My only knock on the movie really is that we didn't see any of the kills on screen. I'm pretty sure all the kills in this movie happened off screen. Katie Cassidy, her character, it was off screen. I do recall that there was also a guest house across the way and there was a maid that lived there. I'm pretty sure she died too and it was also off screen. But yeah, if we got to see some of these kills happen on screen and saw the brutality of them, I think that would have upped the movie. I do think that this movie was great and that it deserved a sequel because of course the original, that one got a sequel. And speaking of another horror remake of that decade, Rob Zombie's Halloween, that remake also got a sequel. And a few other movies from that decade as well, they got prequels, not a sequel, but they still got a second movie, and this movie, it deserved that as well. But these are the reasons why I love 2006's When a Stranger Calls and why I think that it's a horror remake that's better than the original. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and if you want to watch more content from me, go ahead and check out some of these videos right here. And if you want to stay up to date with all of my content, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.